Hello, YouTube.
And welcome back to my channel.
Your channel. We have an addition.
We have a little addition, Maverick Bo Nelson, and he's asleep. So we're going to try to make this quick.
We'll see how this goes.
It's so funny because like pre-baby filming YouTube videos was so easy, and now it's like we've been trying to film for 3 hours. Basically, it's been a whole process of like feed him, lay him down and nap, wake him up, feed him, and now we're here. So he just fell asleep. So he should be asleep for a little bit. But we're here to share our birth story. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
We have two totally different perspectives.
We do.
Where should we even start?
Well, let's start with, we've talked about, I think it's on some podcasts and maybe in some other YouTube videos, you talked about the birth plan. So the birth plan was, we were having our baby at a birthing center here in Fort Worth, and we had an amazing doula, an amazing team of midwives, and our plan, I say our plan.
I mean, it was. Yeah, I couldn't have done it without you.
Well, but I basically from the get-go was like, hey, as long as I'm comfortable with the safety of everything, I'm totally down with you to have the baby however you want to have it, whether that's at home in a tub, because there's a ton of people that do that and love it, or whether that's in a hospital setting, traditional way. I'm all about it, as long as it's safe and as long as it's what you want to do.
Yeah, healthy mom, healthy baby. That's what mattered to both of us. And so I think going in with that mindset really changed everything, because I wasn't going in with like handing out my birth plan to everyone. Like I was like, hey, this is what I would like, but if something else happens, I'm okay with it.
Well, we communicated about it well beforehand. Of like, my perspective was like, hey, I love that this is what you want. I love that this is what you have prayed into and this is what you feel like the Lord has for you. But as long as we're good with whatever happens, as long as you're healthy and the baby's healthy.
Yeah, so as long as I'm healthy and baby's healthy, that was really our perspective. Are you hungry?
We might have to take a feed break here.
Oh no.
And time out. We're back.
We're back. So we were talking about
birth plan.
Yeah, so the plan was I wanted to labor here at the house as long as possible. The reason I wanted to do that was because I didn't want to get an epidural, and I knew that if I went to the birth center too soon and I realized that I still had a little bit further to go, I would have been like, deuces, take me to the hospital. Like, we're getting the drugs. I just knew myself. And so I wanted to labor here at the house up until a point where we really couldn't labor here anymore. To say that is what happened, we probably stayed here a little too long.
Yeah.
We probably could have gone a little earlier than we left. So, but I went into labor at 3 a.m. I want to talk about the night before. So the night before, I was 40 weeks and 3 days when I went into labor. And the night before, my girlfriends came over. Jordan was working, and I was just feeling really defeated. Like, my body's failing me. I don't want to have to get induced. Just a lot of like fears just swarming around in my head. And so they came over and they brought In-N-Out, which I've heard people say eating your favorite meal,
it's your go-to,
can trigger labor, which I don't know if I believe that, but I do love In-N-Out. So they brought over In-N-Out, and we had a girls' night here, and there was a TikTok we wanted to film about like when your friend is ready to go into labor. Well, little did we know that we were actually about to induce labor. And so we filmed this TikTok. I'll put it here on the screen. And I went into labor like 6 hours later.
All while I'm at work.
All while he's at work.
Getting security camera notifications of the front yard, and I'm like, what is
one girl at a time is doing a sprint, and he's like, what are
you guys doing? I don't know what, like when I leave the house, like I don't know what happens sometimes. Anyways,
yeah, so
3 a.m. rolls around.
So we did the sprints, and then I came inside on my birth ball, and I was just bouncing on my birth ball in the living room for like 2 hours while we were talking as a collective. And I remember feeling some light cramping, but I had already had that a little bit, so I wasn't thinking anything of it. I was like, oh, this is just another like false labor, prodromal labor, whatever is about to start. I was just, in my head, I was in denial, and I thought I was going to be pregnant forever. Literally, I felt like I was going to be pregnant forever at this point. And so I'm on the birth ball bouncing for 2 hours. I think that had to do with it too, because they say that bouncing can like trigger the baby to like drop a little bit more, and that's what he did. So we went to bed. I went to bed around midnight. Not advised. Again, in my head, I thought I was going to be pregnant forever. Little did I know that I was about to go into labor with 3 hours of sleep. So I woke up at 3 a.m. to a pretty intense, what I now know to be a contraction, and something just told me to start the timer on my phone. So I did. I had a pregnancy app. I actually started on my clock app in my iPhone at first, because again, I think I was just in denial. And then I was like, wait, these are like 7 to 9 minutes apart consistently. And so that's when I switched over to the pregnancy app, or the labor timer tracker, whatever it is. I'll put it here on the screen. So I woke up at 3, and I did not wake Jordan up until 6 a.m. He had a long day at work the day before, and I was like, one of us has to be rested for sanity reasons. And obviously it's not going to be me, because I got 3 hours of sleep. I woke you up when I realized like this is really happening. The contractions were 7 to 9 minutes apart, give or take, and very consistent. At 6 a.m. him, I spoken like a first-time mother. Don't do what I did, girls. I mean, if you're having a hospital birth and everything's planned out, maybe, but for what I'm doing, like what I wanted for my birth plan, this part makes 0 sense. I went and showered and washed my hair. I wanted clean hair.
Oh, you left out the curl part.
I washed it, which if you have long hair, you know that takes a hot minute. I blow dried it, which again, hot minute. And then I curled it.
I remember being like, we can't. There's no way she's in labor. She's doing all of this. Like, in my mind, I'm like, labor, like, gets you. Like, labor's like, gotcha. To the core.
You know?
And you're in there just...
Like, I think I had worship music on, and I'm just thinking like, okay, like, because I wanted to vlog, so in my head I'm like, okay, like I want to vlog this and I want to vlog that, which that all went out the window, you know, as you would expect when you're having contractions. I was in the bathroom having mild contractions. They were still 7 to 9 minutes apart. I was not in active labor yet, so this was still very early labor. I would say it felt like a light period cramp, and then probably once I got my hair blow dried and curled is when things really started to ramp up.
That's about 8:30. I was like, baby, you gotta sleep.
Yeah.
You have to go back to sleep.
That's right. I forgot.
And you have to try to sleep as much, like sleep through that first part, because that's what the doula said, was to sleep through the first part as much as possible. So catch you back in bed, and that lasted like
30 minutes.
An hour maybe.
Really? Was it an hour?
Because like not by 9 you were up.
Yeah.
By 9 we were in it.
By 9 I was in active labor. Well, I think it was more like 11. All the timestamps. I have all the timestamps on the actual birth vlog video because they're all on my camera and my iPhone. So yeah, I think it was like 10 or 11 I was moving into active labor.
So that's about the time that I was like, I'd called the doula and I was like, hey, like, you know, these are our splits. These are what's going on.
But I want to go back to the sleeping part. So I laid down, tried to sleep because again, I had 3 hours of sleep and I was like, this is not good. Like for wanting a natural birth, this is just not a good situation. I'm trying to sleep in between contractions, which again, pretty much non-existent. Your mind is racing. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to meet my child today, or I could meet my child today. And I remember at one point you said that I needed to eat and you rolled over and you asked me what sounds good. And I said fresh pineapple or Texas Roadhouse. Let me just say this. I have not touched Texas Roadhouse since then.
I forgot about
and
this.
I love Texas Roadhouse. I can't even, the thought of eating it right now.
I ordered the best 8-ounce steak that they have to offer. And
you got me rolls, extra butter.
Jetted out of here. I've never gotten to Texas Roadhouse so fast. Was like, thank you so much. Have a great day. I don't need you to go through my order. I'll just take it. Thank you.
Whatever it is, we'll take it.
Raced back home, got it, put it on a plate, brought it to you.
I was like, I can't eat this right now because I was moving into like heavy, hard contractions.
Yeah, by that time it was like 11.
I think this was right as Debbie was probably, so my doula, Debbie, amazing. I'll leave all her information below. She drove over right after we moved into active labor. And I only know this because I went back and I actually watched all the footage from our photographer that she got because this really helped me. Like, your mind kind of like, just kind of leaves for a little bit.
Was that the beginning of Laborland?
Yeah, you go to Laborland.
We're going to talk about Laborland.
Yeah, it's a real place.
Wow.
But yeah, so he got Texas Roadhouse. I hop out of bed. I'm like, there is absolutely zero way I can lay down right now with these contractions. I applaud any mother who labors laying down.
And
sleeps because that was so intense. I physically couldn't do it. So I hopped up. I felt the best moving, swaying, squatting in hot water, which we'll get to that in a minute. So
pressure.
This man was...
Okay, dads, wives, there's no dads watching this. Wives, tell your husbands, do not do shoulder day anywhere around. Just take a break. Just take shoulder day off. Because I did shoulder day the day before.
And you were regretting it.
And when I did counter pressure, I thought my arms were going to fall off.
So that's what's crazy is like, we haven't even talked about this. So I'm in active labor. These contractions are getting intense. I'm not quite in transition yet. By now it's 11 a.m. So things are moving pretty quickly for a first-time mom. Like they say that early in active labor can last 24 to 48 hours is what I've been told. And so we were not expecting for things to progress as quick as they did. And he started doing counter pressure. I remember just saying harder. And like, it felt like he was barely doing anything. And looking at the videos, I'm like, oh my gosh, like my husband literally...
ended up being a 16-hour workout.
It's amazing because that just shows, one, my mind was elsewhere. Yeah. Any other day I would have been like, ow, that hurts. Like that wouldn't feel good. We're yawning. We're so tired. And And yeah, so counter pressure was incredible, but it just goes to show like the intensity of the contractions. I'm not going to say like they were unbearably painful. They were intense, I think is the better word. They were not comfortable, and they definitely I felt pain, but you know, you just hear women say like, I thought I was dying. I didn't feel that way at any point. I did have a few moments where I was like, I need to get this baby out of me or something could happen. So doula gets here, husband's here, photographer gets here. At this point, I'm probably dilated to a 6.
We don't know.
6 or 7, we don't know. I didn't want to be checked. She probably would have checked me had I asked, but I didn't want to feel discouraged. And that is something that I really prayed into of like, Lord, I don't want to be discouraged if I find out that I'm only like a 3 and I'm feeling all this crazy pain or pressure or intensity. That just really would have like gotten to me mentally. And so at this point I got into the tub. I don't know, how long did I labor in there? Like 30 minutes probably?
Maybe an hour.
An hour? Okay. I labored in the bathtub with the hot water. Literally felt like a warm hug. Best thing I ever did was getting in hot water. I got out of the tub an hour later, still had not lost my mucus plug, still had no bloody show, nothing. And I remember she had me put a diaper on because I think my doula was like expecting it, which diapers, that's a whole thing when you're a mama. And then I think about 30 minutes later, I went and labored in the bedroom on the birth ball.
We were all over.
Squatting and being bent over were my 2 favorite positions to move through a contraction in. I had to move, I had to sway, like sitting still was not an option, sitting down was not an option, laying down was just not an option. Those 3 things just felt so insanely uncomfortable to me. And then I moved into the shower. I labored in there for really until we ran out of hot water. I think probably 30-40 minutes. And then the water started getting cold, and so we hopped out and
came into the nursery.
So obviously in the shower I just had a bra on and nothing else because, you know, just in case anything happened. Yeah, I lost my mucus plug in the shower.
Oh, yeah,
I remember you turning and asking Debbie, do I need to get that?
I don't know.
And
I
she
mean,
was
do we
like,
need this?
No,
like,
you're good.
Is it important? I don't know. So,
it's a valid question,
you know, so they make
though.
a little bit of a deal about it in birth class, and
Yeah.
you lose the mucus plug, and I was like...
Well, they want to know, like, what color certain things are and make sure that everything is
So I kicked back into my training and was like, I need to get that? She's like, no, we're fine.
So
Got you out of the shower.
Got out of the shower, put another diaper on, and then I labored over the toilet.
That's where everything...
That was where it got really intense. I am convinced that's actually...
that's where the modesty in a marriage goes out the window.
It just went out the window. I mean, you don't care at this point. You really don't. Like, if any woman is, like, not insecure, I guess, like, self-conscious of how it's going to be, like, with her husband, you don't care. You really don't.
When I was doing counter pressure
while I'm
you're
on the
facing
toilet,
backwards
on the toilet. I listened to so many podcasts and just read so many articles, and I heard so many people say that the toilet is called the dilation station. Y'all, they're not kidding. I'm convinced that that's what took me into transition. I labored for 3 or 4 contractions on the toilet. So for a total of like maybe 10-15 minutes at this point. And I remember Debbie came in there because I wanted to get up, and she was like, 1 more. You can do 1 more. You can do anything for 1 minute. And I was just like, I don't think I can. Like, this is a lot. And that is what sent me into transition. By that point, I was like, I need to get up. Like, I can't stay here. So I jumped up, probably an 8 at this point, dilated to an 8.
Well, we don't know yet.
We don't know.
We don't know yet.
But we didn't know. But now looking back, that's probably where I was
Don't
at.
spoil the fun yet.
I won't spoil the fun. So that was probably what, like 3 o'clock?
Yeah, getting close.
3-ish.
Yeah. And we had the idea to go to the nursery.
Yeah, well, so I had to throw clothes on. Debbie's like, here, put this on. And I was just like, I don't want to. And she's like, you need clothes. We're not leaving this house. She saw what was
coming down the pipeline.
And she warned me that a lot of her mamas, like when they get to that point, they don't, because you just want to rip things off and you're uncomfortable and you're hot. And so that was a whole thing, trying to get my clothes on. I think I remember, were you holding me or was Debbie holding me?
I was holding you.
Yeah.
And she was helping you get dressed.
I don't even remember. So that was a whole thing. And then I, over time, walked over to this side of the house with the nursery, which I didn't understand why they wanted me to come in the nursery. But now looking back and looking at the photos that we got, I'm so grateful that I did, and that I think it was Jenna's idea to come, our photographer. If you've been here for any amount of time, you know that nursery has held a lot of good moments and a lot of really hard moments. And so it just felt really redeeming to be able to labor the last part of my labor here at the house in his room. So I labored in there for what, 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Oh, yeah. And then that's when things were...
I was in transition.
Things were rough, so...
Yeah. We did several different positions. I had my leg up on an ottoman and was like rocking into it. I think that really helped open my hips up. I laid like bent over on the birth ball. Honestly, that birth ball was my best friend that day, and hot water and your counter pressure. And then we did one more after that. We went back to the bedroom,
Oh no,
and she had
is this
me.
where you were on the side of the bed? You were not a fan of that.
She had me lay, what is that called? Like lying side lying leg release, or I don't know what it is.
Side-lying
maybe I
leg
can put a
release,
picture
maybe.
of like the example here on the screen, but whatever it was.
You did not like that.
I did not like it because it was effective, and I felt everything, and I could feel my body like progressing very quickly. My doula was holding my leg and she was counting down. She's like, give me like 10 more seconds, and I think I was just trying to negotiate with her.
No, there was a time, I think, and that's where I think I kind of looked at her and she kind of looked at me and she was like, I think it was your desire to negotiate with, because everything up until that point,
I was like, yeah, sure,
everything
whatever.
up until that point, every idea that was thrown out, everything that we did, you know, Britt was like, yeah, okay, sounds great, okay. Like you were hurting, but you were on board, and that position, you were like, no, I'm not
The
doing
Holy
it.
Spirit wasn't even going to convince me to do that position.
She was just like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And so Debbie kind of looked at me and I was like, we going? And she's like, yeah, we're going.
And it was exciting. It was exciting for him because he was like, oh my gosh, this baby's about to be here, or so we're about to meet our son. That was quite literally. So I had a contraction on the way out. At this point, I think Debbie realized like the writing on the wall of like, oh shoot, we've got to go now. And again, none of us were expecting me to progress as quickly as I did, which that's what's so cool is my prayer during pregnancy the whole time was, I want to have a natural birth and I want labor to be quick, like supernaturally quick. And that's ultimately what the Lord did. So we were walking out the door. I have a major intense contraction. I'm bent over by the front door. Jordan helps me through that one. And then I waddle out the door to the car because I'm waddling at this point. And that was the worst car ride of my life.
Load you up, and
Whew,
of course as a husband I have, I've got numerous routes and there's always construction in DFW, but we make it. Took us about 22 minutes.
That was probably one of the worst parts of my entire labor was that car ride. And I think looking back, we won't wait as long because I wouldn't advise anyone to.
We definitely can on number 2 for sure. But I mean, and I was trying to focus on getting us there safely, and I wasn't much support in the sense of like, can't do counter pressure, I can't do anything.
I was in the back seat, and
one
Jordan
of the things
just kept saying.
One of the things I just kept telling her was like, just talk to Jesus.
Yeah.
Like he can talk to the Lord right now and ask him for the strength to get through this. And
I remember we
think
had
that helped
worship
you.
on.
Yeah.
I think Yeshua was on in the car. I remember that, which is another really cool thing that we'll get to in a second. So we get there. One thing that they say is to keep the room, whatever room you're in, dimly lit, because that helps with Pitocin, and Pitocin is what helps. I think it's Pitocin. I don't know. I'm not a nurse. Y'all check me on that. Whatever hormone it is, it helps progress labor. So I had an eye mask over my eyes in the car, which also helped me not see where we were. So that helped me feel like, okay, I kept telling myself like 2 more blocks. What I didn't know was a like 25-minute car ride. I mean, you have to mentally prepare for things like that. And I think just having the Holy Spirit really helped me through that. I was crying out to Jesus in the back, just like, help me through this. I remember I kept saying, help me, Jesus. So we get there.
Well, of course, the first thing that, the midwives were already there. They were there to greet us, and, our team was amazing. And one of the first things they wanted to do, since we hadn't done it, was to check you. And so I'll tell this part because
I don't remember it.
Yeah, so they get her on the bed in the birth suite, and I was up at your head to, console you and just, talk you through. And I think you were looking one direction, and the midwife stands up and she's like just wide-eyed, and she just holds up a 10. And I'm like, 10 what? Debbie was next to me, and she goes 10, and then goes. So come to find out, she didn't want you to know where we were at because she didn't want you to slow down. They
didn't want me to relax and like get, in my head about like, oh, this baby's going to be here any minute because I was doing so good progressing.
In all theory, you were at a 10 on the car ride, which was...
Which will not happen again.
Not advisable.
Yeah.
But,
lucky for us, it's my first baby, so the pushing didn't come right away.
I kept saying, well, babe, you wanted to labor at home as long as possible.
I mean, the Lord answered that prayer. The midwife said, how do you want this to go? And I literally said, I don't care. I think I said I want to capture his first cry.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. That did not happen. Okay, sorry, we had to take another little break.
Full of breaks.
Yes. So where were we? The shower. So I wanted to labor in the water again because I knew it felt so good. So I went to the shower, and that's where mommy labored for about an hour. 45 minutes to an hour in there. I remember they tried to get me to sit down on the stool, and I hopped right back up. I said, there is no sitting. Praise the Lord. I was as active and worked out as much as I did during my pregnancy because I labored labored standing up, I would say 99% of the time, up until things kind of got a little crazy. So I labored in there, then I got in the tub, and that's where I started pushing. I remember I started bearing down.
Didn't you ask about the pressure?
I started bearing down, shower, the pressure. I was like, there's so much, I kept saying there's so much pressure, and Debbie and the midwife were like, that's good, that means you're progressing. They didn't tell me to start pushing. They wanted me to let my body naturally start pushing. And then I got in the tub, and that's when I was like, I feel like I need to push. And I remember Angela, our midwife, looking up, and she goes, then push. And I was like, wait, what? I'm fully dilated? And she was like, yes, you can push. And that was like, that, but I didn't know. And that was like the biggest feeling of relief, that like, okay, we got through the craziest part. They say a transition is far worse than pushing. The pushing wasn't painful. The pushing was just really intense. It was a lot of pressure, like Jordan said. And so
we were in the tub, and there was some sweet memories there of, in preparation. Her girlfriends had written out prayers.
Yet another break. Sorry, guys. Yeah, so it was a really sweet moment because my friends had written out scriptures and verses for him to read over me while I was laboring, and that's what he got to do. We are back.
Solved the problem.
We've solved the problem.
Pushed in the tub. Sweet moments. Very emotional for me.
Why were they emotional for you? Were you scared that things weren't?
Not yet. No, just overcome with emotion. Yeah, very, very sweet moments.
Especially when Yeshua came back on, and I think that's when I really, even still is, which is really cool with him at night. That's the song that helps put him to sleep, which is really sweet.
The Lord is in all the details. So we had the midwife that we were supposed to have, but out of the 8 or 10 midwives that are there, this is one that we had never had an appointment with. We had never met her, and like I said, she ultimately ended up being just an amazing person and a rock star.
The one that we needed. That was literally who.
But she was bringing messages from the midwives that we had become friends with, and bringing prayers that they had.
She prayed over us.
Please pray for her on my behalf, and all that stuff. So all of that was really, really special. So then after pushing for about 45 minutes to an hour in the tub, they were like, hey, can we get you on the bed so we can check you? They were moving the mirror around in the tub to try to get a look of where baby was.
So they could see his head. They were in the tub, and or I'm in the tub, you're not.
Yeah.
She stopped me after pushing for how long did I push for? Probably an hour and a half.
Yeah.
She said, do you feel like this is an effective position for you to be pushing? And I was like, basically like, I don't know. Like, I've never done this before. I feel like I'm not making progress. And a few minutes before that, there was just something in me that was like, he's not going to come out. Like, he's stuck. He felt stuck to me. And I don't know how to explain that other than like just that motherly instinct just knew that something was not quite right.
While we were in the tub, they were, of course, using the Doppler to check the heart rate, and the position that she was in on her hands and knees made it a little bit challenging. And so one of the reasons I think is because you didn't feel like you were making progress, but then I think they were also wanted to have her in a better position to be able to check the heart rate and the heartbeat. And so brought her out onto the bed, and that's where things, started to...
It was intense.
Things started to change a little bit.
Yeah, so they had me on my hands and knees for a couple of the contractions. I think 2 of them, maybe 3. And I tried to push that way, basically the same position that I was in the tub, just on the bed. And there was just no progress. Like, I remember feeling so spent at this point. Like, I was literally giving every ounce of energy I had to push this baby out. I didn't know how else to do it. You're bearing down, you're pushing, you're also thinking of like everything that you learned in the birth classes and all the podcasts that I listened to, like low vocals. Jordan kept saying like low and deep, like keep like deep. He would keep saying that to keep my noises. That's the best way I can say it.
There were some
noises that just naturally, it's an instinctual, like what's the word I'm looking for?
I mean, it's
instinctual,
primal.
You just know. And so I was just trying to remember all these things that we were taught in birth class and from our midwives and doulas. We're asleep again. And at that point, that's when I realized like he's not coming out. And they were checking the heart rate.
They went to check the heart rate, and it was really low. And then at some point they were like, okay, well, we're going to check that again just in a second. And the demeanor started to change, and not in a bad way, just in a more serious. It took a more serious tone, which I don't know if you noticed, but I definitely, of course, noticed.
Yeah, I did not realize the shift in tone at all. And again, I was in labor land, which you're just so mentally checked out. Not in a bad way, not in like a dissociated way. I don't want that to sound bad. Your attention turns inward, really. Like, you're focusing on your baby. There were a lot of times where I don't even know if you heard me. Maybe I'm sure the midwives did because they were right there. But there were a lot of times where, like, after I was finished pushing, I would talk to Maverick and I'd be like, Maverick, come on, bud, like, work with me here. Like, I need you to help me, help Mama.
I do remember that.
I would talk to him, not that he knew what I was saying, but maybe in some crazy way because of how God designed moms and babies, maybe he did, you know. And at this point, he still had not dropped either, which was another crazy thing. He was still sitting really, really high. And I remember my whole pregnancy, I was like, man, is he gonna drop? Man, is he gonna drop? Everyone was telling me, like, oh, he's gonna drop, you're gonna go into labor. Like, you'll know because he'll drop. He never dropped. He made me work to get him out.
I think I realized that there might be some trouble or things might not be going the way we hoped for, because I remember the midwife asking one of the birth assistants to go and make a call. And at the time, I didn't realize what that call was, but looking back now, that call was to the doctor and to the hospital. And that was, once again, when we started this, I told you guys, I'm all about however, wherever you want to have the baby, as long as there's a plan for if things don't go the way we
There
planned
needs to
them.
be a plan A, B, and C, yeah.
And so one of the reasons we chose the birth center that we did was because they have a unique relationship and they have privileges at hospitals. So it's like you're not just getting passed off if you do have to go to the hospital. Your midwife goes with you, and so does your doula, so does your entire team, and they're used to midwife care at the hospital because they have privileges there. They have an established practice at the hospital as well.
I remember, like, we're on the bed, and again, I still hadn't realized, like, there was a shift in the room. I heard our midwife make the call, and I was like, I haven't even told you this. In my head, I'm like, I mean, who could she possibly be calling right now? I'm literally about to push baby out of me. Well, little did I know she was actually calling about that situation. I don't even think I told her that.
No.
I need to at my next appointment. But all of a sudden, they had me lay on my side, and I just remember Jordan was behind me. He's like holding me, loving on me, speaking to me, encouraging me. And they're holding my legs, and they're just like, we need you to push with everything you have. And that was where I started getting really discouraged because I was like, I am. Like, I have been. I have been. I am. I'm tapped out.
I remember you saying that.
Really?
I remember you saying, I have been.
Oh.
And I think at that point.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Wow. You're just truly so, like, out of it. So they had me push on my side for 2 pushes. And then on the third one, that's when one of the birth assistants, she came around, and she had been right by my side this whole time, laboring at the birthing center. And she came around, and her whole demeanor shifted for the best. I'm glad she did because it helped me.
I couldn't have done this because you would have cried.
Yeah.
But it needed to be somebody else that did it.
Yeah.
But what did she say?
It helped me because I was, again, I'm so checked out. She gets in my face, like literally like right here. And she says, you're pushing this baby out right now. And I was like, a what? Like,
she gave her the locker room talk.
It was
it's the fourth quarter. This is the big game. If you don't do it now.
Well, and that's what scared me.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, I actually was scared, like, all jokes aside. It was scary, you know, like, as a woman, you know all the things that can go wrong if a baby gets stuck. And I do remember at this point them checking his heartbeat, and I kept saying, is he okay? That's just how quick. I mean, that was all in a matter of like 2 minutes. Things just like flipped so fast.
So that last, they went back to check their heart rate. I say they went back to check the heart rate, but the heartbeat wasn't there. Literally, like, all in about 10 seconds, they made the decision, like, all right, we're going to the hospital. And so...
Well, and I remember, like, I was in the middle of another contraction when they told me to stand up, and I was like, you want me to what? Like, and I did. I mean, you...
not messing around.
In that moment, you really just, like, look past what you're feeling because you're so focused on your baby. Mm-hmm. I did not care at that point. I did not care that we were leaving the birthing center. I didn't even care if I didn't get a natural birth. Like, I just wanted him to be here and safe and healthy.
I was like, okay, well, let me get my keys. I need to bring the bags. And she kind of looked at me and she was like, no, we're going. And I was like, oh, we are at that level.
We're at like DEFCON 5.
So forget the keys, forget the, I mean.
They load me up in this truck and just trying not to push the baby out of me. It felt like a 30-second truck ride. Jordan says it was like 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes.
It was about 4 minutes.
So we get there. Jordan opens the door. He gets me out. He's like, I need you to run. And I was like, I literally sounded like.
I don't know why.
Well, I sounded like a toddler. I was like, I can't.
That's one of the things is, I mean, unless you're dying, they won't come out and get you. Obviously, they had already made the calls. They were making calls while we were en route, all of this stuff. Literally, so she's just like, Jordan, we need to make it to that door. And we were maybe 25 yards to it.
It felt like an entire lap around a football field. Felt like there was a literal watermelon in between my legs because he was crowning.
The waddle was real.
The water was real. It was, I'm not gonna like discount it. It was very painful.
They're like, there's gonna be a wheelchair at that door. So I was like, sweetie,
yeah,
if you can just make it to that door.
I tried. So I'm in my hospital gown. down. I'm soaking wet because let's not forget the fact that I labored most of the time in hot water. I squat down and I waddle as fast as I can. And so I'm just like waddling. And I remember at one point during this 25, yeah, we're just talking, we're gabbing. I remember at one point during this very dramatic walk into the hospital, I waddle in and I look to my right and there's a guy sitting against the building. And why I remember this, I really don't know. But he's sitting there smoking a cigarette. And at some point, I'm just like, wow, he's getting quite the show right now. Because my husband's like, I need you to run. And I'm like, I can't. And then I squat and waddle in. I'm in a labor gown, so it's obvious I'm pregnant. So anyways, we get in there, and there's a wheelchair.
He probably was like, oh, that was an interesting day at work.
So we get in there, there's a wheelchair, and I've never been so happy to see a wheelchair. Because at this point, walking is so difficult. So I was so happy to see the wheelchair. So I sit down in it. You wheel me up. Mm-hmm. This is kind of where, again, I'm still kind of like, I'm definitely in labor land, but I think I'm still just kind of in denial that there's something going wrong. And we get up there, they take us up to the floor, the labor and delivery floor, whatever it's called. And they wheel us in, and there is an entire massive room filled with nurses and doctors. And I'm like, what is going on?
I think that's where it really hit me that something was not right, because I was like, I mean, you just think, you're like, okay, like when you give birth, there's probably, in a traditional setting, there's a doctor, there's maybe 2 nurses, there's maybe another nurse for the baby. I don't know, I could be way off base, but there was literally 17 people in the room. And I was
and
like,
they're all scrubbed in. They're all like
and
ready
to
go. And
I was like, what is
going on?
When did this go so south? Like, what's going on? So
they rush us in there. The anesthesiologist comes in and is telling Jordan to take off all my jewelry, and I'm sitting there having a contraction. They're trying to throw my feet in the stirrups. I felt like I was thrashing around on that bed.
They weren't too bad.
I know I had 2 nurses holding down one arm, another nurse on the other side, because they were trying to shove a PICC line in me. And the anesthesiologist comes in and he's like, when's the last time you ate? And I'm like, I threw up 3 times today. And he's like, when's the last full meal you had? And I'm like, what? Like, I was so out of it.
I had to answer for it. I was like, last night, like,
I was like, yesterday.
Today hasn't been a full meal at all. And if there was anything that got down, it's not there anymore.
There's no food in me right now. And that scared me. I think that was a realization of like, oh, they're about to take me back for a C-section. And this is where, like, I'm so grateful for the doctor that I had. The Lord knew exactly what doctor needed to be on call that night. She was so sweet and so compassionate.
She's
and
amazing.
I wish I could give her a big hug even right now still.
I did.
Yeah, you did. You got to. I could not because I couldn't stand up. But she came over and she introduced herself. Literally, as I put my feet in the stirrup, she looks at me with the most compassion that a woman could possibly receive in such a scary moment. And she looks at me and she says, sweetheart, your baby's heart rate is dropping and we need to hurry fast. She said, I can either give you an episiotomy and cut you right now and we can push this baby out with a vacuum, or I can take you back for a C-section. I literally looked at her and I was like, cut me. And that's what they did. They cut me within 20 seconds.
In between when we first arrived and that conversation, they obviously have a lot better technology to search for and monitor a baby's heart rate in the hospital. So it wasn't just a Doppler, a handheld Doppler like you would use in the birth center. So when we first got there, they got baby's heart rate back and they were like, okay. So then there was kind of this like chill for a minute, and the entire hospital team was just
absolutely
phenomenal.
Amazing.
Like such amazing people. Like the Lord is just like
blessed us in that regard.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so right before that conversation,
his heart rate dipped again.
His heart rate dipped, and then it got to the point where they couldn't find it. And so that's what I think brought that conversation on of like, I need to cut you and I got to get this baby out right now or you're going back for a C-section. So, I mean, you were just like stone cold, like, and the whole time I'm like, man, they're not putting any drugs in that. They were still working on getting the IV in.
Yeah, I didn't even have a PICC line in me yet.
And that's where I was like, oh, they're going to cut her. And I remember like you just looking at that doctor, and it was like freaking Rocky 3, where she was just like, Mick looks at Rocky and he's like, I got to cut you. He's like, cut me, Mick. And you were just like, just cut me. And I was like, okay.
And that's what's crazy and so beautiful about...
They are built different.
Yes, women are. But that's what's beautiful about like doing it with the Holy Spirit, is because like I don't remember that. I remember getting cut, but I don't remember the pain. Yep. I remember the moment, but not the sensation or the feeling of it, so to say. That's just crazy to me, because you hear so many horror stories, so many traumatic birth stories of like women remember it, they heard the sound, all these things. I don't remember any of that.
Laborland.
Laborland, it's like the Men in Black, where they would like
flash you,
like clear your memory. I swear that's what happened, but that was like the Holy Spirit, because it's biblical. Like her hour is here to endure the birth pains, but then she doesn't remember once the baby's here or something like that.
Mm-hmm. She does the episiotomy. She gets the vacuum placed. and then I want to say you had a contraction, and then you pushed through.
I pushed through when the contraction stopped.
And then on
I
that
kept pushing.
second contraction,
Came
she
out.
replaced the vacuum, and
You
he
explain
came
it.
out.
Yeah, you explained like the vacuum situation because I obviously wasn't looking. I don't even know what I was
I
looking
mean,
at.
it's just really just getting him to a place to be able to place it appropriately.
Yeah.
And then he came out right away and brought him up, put him right on her chest, and he cried.
I remember hearing him cry when he first came out,
Mhm.
and then he wasn't crying anymore when they put him on my chest, and
Well,
they
that
were
was-
working on him pretty quickly.
Well, it was like this. He cried right away,
Yeah.
which was like the best thing.
I lost it.
The best sound
in the
ever.
world.
And
Yeah.
so, we got really emotional, and then they're kind of like trying to get him to cry a little bit more, and then, that working became more vigorous, and then we had a plan to do a delayed cord clamp, and so we got a pretty decent amount of that, but pretty quickly they were like, okay, like,
they whisked him
we're
away.
gonna, Dad, do you want to cut the cord, which I did.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then they were like,
And then he went to be with Maverick. I wanted him. I was like, he looked at me and I was like, go with him.
Yeah.
And so he went to be with Maverick, and they took care of me. Again, we had the most incredible nurses.
Yeah.
I felt so like safe with them, I guess. You would hope that you could feel safe at any hospital, but I know that's not the case with birth
Yeah.
stuff. So we found out that we are Coombs positive, which basically means that my blood was working against Maverick's blood. We had different bloods or something.
Different
like,
blood types.
Different blood
Yeah.
types, yeah, basically. So between that and then the trauma of the vacuum that they had to use on Maverick during delivery, he ended up having jaundice pretty bad, pretty quickly. And so
we got to mom and baby, is what
Mom
they
and
call
baby
it. I
ward.
think,
Yeah, they
Mom
took
and
us-
baby. We got there about midnight, and his first lab draws came back really high. So by 3 a.m., he was underneath what we affectionately call the disco lights.
the baby disco lights. I was technically in the hospital for 2 days, and then they discharged me, but obviously we're not going to leave without Maverick. So we ended up staying for 4 days.
Got those Billy Rubin numbers to come down, and got through all of that. And
We rebuked the Billy
he
Rubins.
was 9 pounds 1 ounce,
21 inches long.
21 inches long. He was a pretty big homeboy to come out by himself.
If you ask me, I had an amazing birth story. I am so glad that it turned out the way that it did, even though it didn't go as planned. If you ask him, he's had the last month to work through some of the trauma of it all.
It was just a very helpless feeling, and seeing the look on the nurses and the doctors' faces. Once again, I'm just so thankful for the training and the experience of our team, and our midwife was phenomenal. And
Literally amazing.
she
An angel on earth.
She pulled the plug on the situation exactly when she needed to. It's a very helpless feeling as a dad when you can't do anything in that moment, and you go back and forth from making sure like is my wife okay? Is my baby okay? I had a massive adrenaline dump and had to like literally go sit down. It was, I think, after everything was done, the Mav is okay. Mav is going to be with her. You're fine. Everything. I just had to like leave for a second, and I went into the bathroom. They have like these massive like tile showers where they can actually like wheel a wheelchair. I just sat down and laid up against the cold tile, and I think you sent one of the midwives to find
I was
me.
like, I don't know where my husband went.
So she like pops her head in and she's like, Jordan? And I was like, I just need a minute. The adrenaline was real.
Well, when
And
he came back out, I'm just in baby bliss. I'm like, look at her son. I'm like crying, emotional. I look over at him and I'm like, I could do that again. And he's like, what?
I was just like,
You were like, I'm going to need a minute. I want to wrap up with this. The power of intercession. If you are a Christian watching this and you're about to have a baby or you hope to have a baby one day, I had a group of probably 20 women in a text thread. Literally, I sent them a text the second I went into labor, or when I woke Jordan up and told them like, hey, I'm in labor. And when they didn't hear from me, they were like discerning in the group, like something's off, and just so powerful, so powerful. I felt so covered the entire time. Even when we were getting transferred to the hospital, I had this overwhelming peace that everything was going to be okay. The Lord had actually given me a vision of Maverick when he's like 3. Even still in the postpartum anxiety phase has given me peace because I'm like, he's going to be fine. I've already seen him when he's 3 years old.
our initial thought process behind all of this was all that matters. Mom's okay and baby's okay. And so we consider it a massive success.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like what we planned out. The first part was to a T what we planned out.
Literally a dream. Yeah.
And then, that last part, not what we had planned, but you know what? The Lord was in control, and the Lord placed every single nurse, the doctor, such a sweet lady, and then, our midwife team, our doula, our photographer. I mean, everybody just played a role. And so it ended up being the most beautiful success. And here we are. We have a monster.
A beautiful baby boy.
We have a monster.
Who is currently measuring in the 100th percentile for his height.
Big boy.
It's just insane. So when you look at those numbers, you're like, it kind of makes sense why I needed a little bit of help.
You did great.
Thanks, baby. I couldn't have done it without you. That is how we brought little baby Maverick Bo into this world, and I wouldn't change a thing. In fact, I already can't wait to do it again, and I fully plan on going back to the same birthing center. So they're just an incredible team of women, and they yield to the Lord, and they love the Lord. And I think that when you have God in the middle of anything, including birth and labor and delivery, like, He's gonna work it out for your good somehow, some way. So that is it. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, we're gonna go run errands after I feed this little milk machine. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for stopping in on my channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I can't wait. Bye.